I would like to invite our President, Mr. Rajesh Masand, to introduce Mr. Deepak Seth. Thank you.
Thank you. Friends, we have Mr. Deepak Seth with us, a renowned entrepreneur and philanthropist. I welcome you all. I welcome you on behalf of CMAI. As Naveen mentioned, Mr. Deepak Seth started a very humble beginning when he started with a small factory in India. He started with his first company in 1987. That was Pearl Global Industries Limited, the first factory of his in India. And then he graduated to start a new company in 1999, which was Pearl Global, PDS Multinational Group Limited. This group is headquartered in Hong Kong. He is a truly visionary. When in 1999 he started a production unit which could source the material from Far East, having production units in China, where he could do the best of the designs and sell at a very competitive price to his buyers in Europe and America. He also has a company called Leros Modem in Germany. Leros is his casual brand, and he markets in Germany and other countries in Europe with his own brand. He also supplies to close to 1,000 shops, all corner shops and shop-in-shop under his own label. I think that's the vision where you do your business under your brand in Europe. Hats off to you, sir. He is also chairman of Pearl Academy of Fashion Institute, whereby they train 5,000 students in a year. And they have 4 campuses in the country. He is not only an entrepreneur who earns money, as Naveen says, 12,000 crore business in a year. I think, Rahul bhai, if we say 12,000 crore, it's equivalent to almost Bombay ka business. Along with his business, he also has a lot of charitable work to be done. Like he has Meena Seth Clinic, where they provide free medical aid to needy and poor people. They have their own trust called Arpan, where they provide free tuition in English, mathematics and science to poor students. Soham for All, where they provide free education to underprivileged children. So you not only make money, you know how to spend it. And he is a graduate from St. Stephen College, Delhi, and student from an MBA from Jamnalal Bajaj Institute. I welcome you here on behalf of CMAI. He has also been awarded Udyog Ratna from Haryana government. Sir, on behalf of CMAI, I take this honor to felicitate you on the launch of your book, Resolute By Design. So let's welcome Mr. Deepak Seth. My apologies. Thank you. Please welcome. I would request Mr. Deepak Seth to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you, Naveen. Thank you, Rahul, for giving me this opportunity. Actually, I started my career in 1976 when I passed out from Bajaj Institute, and I worked in ITC for 2 years in the personal department. And there I had a lot of interaction with unions, with workers, and understood how, the factories work and how you have to treat the workforce to get the best out of them. And then I moved to Delhi and started the first garment factory in 76. We were part of a family thing. My brothers were doing plastics, and I joined them, and then one of their salesmen had a friend in New York, Anup Kapoor, I still remember his name in 1976. So he told me that this friend of his is buying garments from India. And that time there was this hippie look, if you remember, in the 70s, the bleeding Madras check and the crepe check and so on. So he said, my friend is looking for garments and would be interested. So I told my brothers, I said, look, you guys are doing plastics, there's nothing much for me to do there, so let me try this. So I met Anup and he gave me the first order, 6,000 pieces. And it was a embroidery shirt with chambray. And there were 30 roses, those hand embroidery rose buds, which were there that time. So he said, "Meko ye 6 weeks mein chahiye. If you can deliver the 6,000 pieces in 6 weeks, then I can, place more orders." And I had no idea of garments. No clue at all. What is a kaj? What is a button? Button to kya pata, kaj वगैरह, I had no idea. So I had a friend who had a small factory in Nizamuddin. So he said, we'll take the order and we'll make the shirts, and then of course. So it was a very tough 6 weeks because the embroidery had to be done in Ghaziabad, in small homes. Each home would do one shirt because there were 30 of them, so the ladies would do that. So I virtually lived 6 weeks in the ambassador car, used to pick up the garments from the factory, go to Ghaziabad, distribute in different homes, and pick them up the morning, go back and get it. So anyway, I executed the order well. But the point is there was a hunger in the belly that I have to do it and I must do it and I must. So the point is that whenever you get an opportunity, you have to grab it. And then you have to go to make it work. That's the most important thing. So from there, then I had, a buyer in Holland called Ratan Chadda, Chefs and Chads. I don't know if you remember Mex. That was the brand he had. And Ratan was also a distributor for Esprit. And I saw how he had set up international global, offices around the world with friends and family. So he had a cousin, he was in one country, some friend in another country. So I saw his model and I said, why can't we, also set up our own offices in different parts of the world with friends and family? So I had some friend from IIM Ahmedabad, there's one guy from Bajaj also, someone from somewhere else. So I started putting Dusseldorf, New York, and, set up import companies there. And started our own. So I was manufacturing here, and then those companies were importing and distributing as a wholesaler. So that went well, and of course, with partners, you have to be very transparent and trust. That's the most important thing. It's like you have 5 brothers all doing business and you work together. So today we have 50 partners, and then none of them are family. They're all professionals picked up from the best from the competitors or wherever, and we've given them shareholdings, and they all work like it's their own business. They own 25% of the equity. But the key is they have to trust you and you have to trust them. And you have to quarterly, monthly give them the accounts, give the total picture, the real picture. And that's worked very well, which has helped me from start, to now $1.5 billion. In fact, this year our budget is $2 billion between the two businesses. So we did a vertical demerger, my 2 sons. So one is looking after Pearl, one is looking after PDS. But the business is run by professionals and partners who are not really relatives, but who are professionals, but they are the best in class. And we give them, empower them to, work in the way that they deliver, and they drive the front end and take care. The back end is with us, so all accounting, bank, financing, secretarial, all that is with us, but the front end is with these partners. So hunger in the belly, hard work, honest, credibility is very important. So all these things work very well, and the transparency and the trust. And then of course, we have good friends and we have good vendors, bankers, all have helped. And today now with the retailers, the big thing is compliance and sustainability. So as long as you focus on those things, and then operational excellence, you have to deliver perfectly in time and the quality. And you have to be competitive, otherwise it doesn't work. So that's the simple formula. Now you've got to see how to make it work in the way that is profitable for you, profitable for the customer, and it's a win-win situation for everyone. So this is a small thing, and I'd love to take questions later. And of course, if you have any questions, I'd like to answer them. Yeah. But it's been a wonderful journey, and I really want to thank the team here for facilitating me here. This book, actually, a friend of mine is he's a good writer, and he said, Deepak, why don't you share your journey with other people so that people, the young generation can learn so the values, your culture, and what are the things that made you tick, and which worked for you. So he spent 2.5 years in writing this book. He interviewed about 50, 60 people from businesses, buyers, family, friends, and even the employees, even up to the peon in the office to ask about my, system and culture and value system. So it's a very detailed book, and I think there are a lot of nice things which he has written, which I think would be a big help to the next generation if they really imbibe on it. So there we are. Thank you very much once again for having me here. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. I would request Rahul Bhai and Deepak ji to take the chair on the dais for a small discussion. And then after that, we can have questions and answers.
Yes, please.
Actually, Deepak, I had a whole page of questions ready, but I think you answered most of them. So our session is going to be a little short. I'm glad Deepak has achieved whatever he did, and the fact that both Rajesh and he mentioned that he's from Bajaj Institute. It only goes to show that I was not the only genius from Bajaj Institute. Deepak, I know you have sort of briefly touched upon your journey from the first order of 6,000 shirts to where you are today. But I'm sure there must have been certain turning points in your life, in your journey, which sort of changed the way you thought about yourself or your business or your ethics, whatever. Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, so Rahul, when there was the quota system, if you all remember, quotas was a big constraint and a big headache. And there was a lot of loopholes in the government policy on quota, getting that FCFS, which was first come, first serve. So I found a lot of exporters, were like setting up 100 companies and applying and all that stuff. And even I was tempted to do that. In fact, we set up 10 companies and tried to, apply in that, this thing. But I found that it was something which was not 100% ethical because there were some gray areas and people were cut and paste and doing things like that. So in one of our applications also, there was a slight problem. My team had done some stupid thing in, changing some date or some. So when I came to know that, I was really disturbed, and obviously APC also came to know about it. And anyway, we resolved the problem. But from then I realized that you have to follow the system. You have to follow the process. Never do shortcuts. So that made it, and this was in the, I would say, late 80s or early 90s when this quota system went away. And that really helped me to set up the SOPs in a way that everything was 100% perfect. Because if you go in the right way, then you may have some delays, but in the end, you'll be successful. So that was the turning point where I told my teams from today onwards, 100% follow the system, follow the process, and do not take any shortcuts. And after that, whether it was, that was one. The other was that in one of the factories, in Delhi, we had a strike. And for a couple of days, and I went into detail what happened, and I found that some male supervisor had kind of misbehaved with one of the girls. And, obviously in our industry, a lot of lady employees are there. So that day I said, you cannot have a culture where the male can, do what he wants. So I came on the floor and I said, every woman in this factory is either your sister or your mother or your auntie. No one will view any lady in any other way. If I find out that any male worker is behaving in an inappropriate manner, and I was a bodybuilder and a wrestler, so I was a tough guy talking of the 70s. So I said, you guys have had it, and so we created that culture also of respect for the male worker and the workforce. And that also helped in, creating that right value system across the world. So abhi bhi Bangladesh mein factories lagti hain, या Indonesia or Vietnam. I always used to go there, and when I speak to the workforce, I used to tell all the male and all the women, like the 2,000 workers standing there, and we used to have, reception. I used to say that every lady here is either your sister, mother, or aunt. So everyone has to. So that this message, they say fish smells from the head. If the head of the organization has the right values, the right culture, it goes down. And you have to be very strict about it, and you have to set the example as well. You cannot just say things and then do something different. So these are a couple of things which made a difference in my success. 100% transparency, follow the system, and respect for the workforce. That worked well.
That's two very important points I think that you mentioned. But you also mentioned about setting the right SOPs. Now, most of our members of CMAI and also those who are gathered here today, we are all what you might call the MSMEs and probably the M part of MSME, the micro level. Now, the general thinking is that SOPs and stuff like that are for the big factories, for the exporters, for the big names. As far as the MSMEs are concerned, हम तो यार सुबह आते हैं, शाम को जाते हैं, जो ठीक लगा उस दिन वो काम किया. And we sort of keep building the rules of the game as we go along. Do you think it is possible for people like us, say typically 5 crores to 25 crores turnover, is it possible, is it necessary to have a standard set of SOPs?
No, I think 100%. I think it's very, very important because I assume most of the people here are manufacturing themselves, or
Yep.
are they retailers as well?
No.
All manufacturers.
All manufacturers.
So manufacturers में देखो, the first principle जो है कि any garment that you take should be production viable. So whenever you get a sample or your designer makes a sample, it has to go to the production person or the engineer or the industrial engineer or whoever the master cutter, whatever it is, कि भाई इसमें क्या problem आ सकती है production में. So you have to have the first step. Anything you're going to take into the factory, the production master must approve it can be made and made perfectly. Because if you pick up something which cannot be made and then later on, there's wastage, rejection, all that stuff. So once the marketing guy and the master have signed, yes, this is production friendly, this is viable, or इसमें ये changes करो आप if you want to get it right. And then you tell the customer कि भाई ये इसमें instead of making like this, I want to do it like this, which does not make the appearance too different, but at least it's production friendly. So that's number one. And number two, you have to then control, if you have done the costing, 2 मीटर में कपड़ा बनना है, तो you have to have an SOP कि भी 2 मीटर में रोज उसका रिपोर्ट आनी चाहिए कि भी 2 मीटर में ही बन रहा है. ये नहीं कि 2.25 मीटर पे बन रहा है या 180 में बन रहा है, whatever. So you have that report of the cutting. And then it goes into the manufacturing. And then you also have to उसका जो production निकलनी चाहिए इतने pieces की, तो उसका भी आप एक benchmark बनाइए. And then obviously when it comes out of the line and the quality control, what are the parameters, उसका भी ये चीज़ allowed है, ये चीज़ allowed नहीं है. Because sometimes let's say 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch के लिए it's not a big problem, but then go back to the alteration and all that stuff. So every step of the process अगर आप उसका benchmark बना दें और अपने जो supervisor है या master है या जो भी है उनको सब वो clear है कि भी ये, then the thing will flow smoothly and then you're able to deliver the goods on time, the right quality, and the customer is happy. अभी प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि MSME सेक्टर में कि जैसे ऑर्डर ले लिया, कोई भी ऑर्डर पकड़ लिया, एंड देन यू स्ट्रगल इन द फैक्ट्री, डिले हो गया या उसमें क्वालिटी ठीक नहीं बनी, देन यू डोंट डिलीवर ऑन टाइम टू द कस्टमर, देन ऑब्वियसली द कस्टमर इज नॉट हैप्पी. Today, I think operational excellence, whether it's a big factory or a small factory, the delivery quality has to be perfect. And if you have a problem, transparency होनी चाहिए, customer को बोल दो यार ये issue है, that so that he doesn't have empty shelves or whatever. So definitely, I think benchmarks should be set up and they should be followed religiously. And every day, 1 घंटा या आधा घंटा लगेगा कि जो आपने setup किया है, whether it's being followed or not. And once the team inside knows कि भी हाँ ये चीज़ें monitor हो रही हैं, तो वो automatically फिर वो automatic process बन जाएगा. तो वो detail में जाना ज़रूरी है, even for us, whether it's a small manufacturer or big. Because I started small, I started with like 50 machines. And it was very important to understand these things on the ground level. Otherwise, today we make 1 million garments a day, globally. In fact, last was going to do 2 billion, it probably 1.2 million garments a day between all the factories, worldwide that we produce. So unless you have these systems and processes, it's impossible to deliver. अब पहले तो 4-4 महीने मिलते थे order delivery देने में. अब तो customer कहता है 4 हफ्ते में दो. So if you don't have the correct benchmarks, तो आप फिर success करनी बहुत मुश्किल है.
So I think what Deepak is saying is that you can't really leave it to chance. कि ये हो जाएगा कैसे भी करके. You need to plan for it. You need to have a certain process fixed for it, and that will not only be necessary, but I think it will help you to grow and build your base. But let me take this question of SOPs into a slightly broader concept. Obviously, you are, when you say you're making 1.2 million garments per day, you can't do it all yourself, or you and Palak or Pulkit and whatever. So you have to bring in professionals. Now, it's all right for a $1.5 billion company to have professionals. The problem is where your company is not large enough or profitable enough to hire expensive outsiders, because good people will be expensive. So on one hand, you can't afford them, and on the other hand, you can't really sort of grow beyond a certain point unless you bring in professionals. And I'm not even touching the area which typical entrepreneurs have today of the distrust of professionals. कि यार अपना आदमी नहीं है तो God knows where he will cheat us, where he will fleece us, whatever. So is there some kind of a benchmark? Is there some kind of a sort of a cutoff point that look, up to here you can probably manage on your own. Beyond this point, you must bring in professionals. Is there some kind of a magic figure like that in your mind?
देखिए पॉइंट इज दैट आप पहले स्मॉल शुरू किया, आपने 50 मशीन या 100 मशीन या 200 मशीन से फैक्ट्री लगाई है, विच यू प्रॉब्ली हैव टू मैनेज योर सेल्फ, विद योर सुपरवाइजर्स एंड ऑल दैट. एंड वंस यू हैव अ गुड फैक्ट्री, गुड क्वालिटी, गुड प्रोडक्ट आप सप्लाई कर रहे हो और बायर को है, द बायर इज हैप्पी, ही विल वांट टू प्लेस मोर ऑर्डर्स विद यू. एंड इफ़ यू आर मेकिंग प्रॉफिट्स, और आप 200 मशीन से आप सोचोगे जी मेरे को 200 मशीन और लगा सकता हूँ, बिकॉज इट्स अ प्रॉफिटेबल बिजनेस. सो वंस यू गेट टू 500 मशीन कैपेसिटी, that still is manageable with your own yourself and your supervisors and so on. Beyond that, what I did was that I brought in people from the competition or who were competent कि हम चलो 500 मशीन और लगाएंगे, उसको फिर हमने 20% प्रॉफिट शेयरिंग दे दी जो प्रोडक्शन जो हेड था कि भाई वॉट एवर गेट्स प्रोड्यूस इन दिस फैक्ट्री, उसका अगर 100 रुपया प्रॉफिट होएगा तो 20 रुपये तेरे को मिलेंगे. सो ही बिकम लाइक अ पार्टनर. So this way, if wherever we have factories and we have all everywhere profit sharing है, जहाँ वो उसमें उसकी शेयर होल्डिंग है, तो आपने नई मशीन लगाई 500, उसमें आपका अच्छा बंदा कोई आया, मास्टर आया या प्रोडक्शन कि भाई जो भी प्रॉफिट है, एंड देन यू एवरी मंथ यू गिव देम द फिगर्स कि भाई ये प्रॉफिट हुआ, ये सेल हुई, मतलब ट्रांसपेरेंसी चाहिए उसको, ये फील करेगा भाई मेरे साथ गड़बड़ नहीं हो रही, तो वो फिर उसको अपने चलाएगा जैसे. सो व्हेन ही लुक्स आफ्टर हिज 25% ऑफ द प्रॉफिट, आपका 75% भी आपको मिलेगा, बिकॉज ही इज हैंडिंग. सो यू डोंट हैव टू वरी कि वो कुछ गड़बड़ करेगा. बट अनलेस यू आर टेम्पटेड टू कि कल को सब उसमें बहुत प्रॉफिट हो गया, सब उसको क्यों इतना पैसा देना है, इसकी तो औकात ही 50,000 रुपये की, इसको सब 5 लाख रुपये मिल रहा है. सो दैट यू हैव टू फॉरगेट. नेवर लुक एट व्हाट द अदर गाय इज मेकिंग. आप अपना देखो. तो वो आपने एक और फैक्ट्री डाल ली, फिर वो उसको अच्छा बना, फिर देन यू गो टू द नेक्स्ट, देन यू लुक फॉर पीपल. कोई कंपेटिटर का जो है उसका कोई बढ़िया बंदा है, जो डिज़ाइनर है, या उसका मतलब प्रोडक्शन का है, जो फाइनेंस का है. सो देन वी स्पॉटेड पीपल हु वर इन द कॉम्पिटिशन हु वर डूइंग वेल. उनको फिर हम लाए, फिर उनको कहीं और फैक्ट्री डाली, किसी को बांग्लादेश भेज दिया, किसी को वहाँ करके ऐसे बिल्ट अप द होल थिंग. सो इट्स ऑलवेज द फर्स्ट वन हैज़ टू बी राइट. यू मेक प्रॉफिट्स एंड देन यू ग्रो स्टेप बाय स्टेप. इट कैनॉट बी सडनली आप 1000 मशीन लगा लो और फिर यू स्टार्ट स्ट्रगलिंग. So 100 से 200 to 500, and after that you bring in partners, whether you bring them as equity partners or you can have a profit sharing partner, but be transparent with them every month कि भाई ये सेल हुई, इतना हुआ, उसका अलग डिविजन अकाउंटिंग कर लो, उसको बोले कि हाँ भाई साहब बिल्कुल सही करें. Then I think there's no limit to the growth. You've seen it. I mean, I and my 2 sons are just more mentoring and guiding, and not, of course, customer relationships are important, banking relationships are important, the board is important, we are listed. But the actual stuff is done by professionals who are all having a stake in the business. They run it like it's their own. Ownership बड़ी important है ना. अब आप तो सब जगह own कर नहीं सकते. So you have these partners and you bring these people who will help you to grow to the next level.
So when you do hire professionals, what typically would you recommend are the aspects of your business that you should handle yourself? Are there any specific areas like say marketing or customer relations or finance or whatever, or should it depend on what you are individually good at?
No, no. अब जैसे वॉलमार्ट का वेंडर फेयर हुआ या रिलायंस का वेंडर फेयर हुआ, वहाँ पर आप 20 वेंडर आए हैं उनके, कई कई वेंडर के ओनर्स खुद आते हैं, कई जगह उनके लोग आ जाते हैं, कोई प्रोडक्शन का आता है, कोई मार्केटिंग का, कोई डिज़ाइन का। तो हम फिर उसको देखते हैं कि ये फ्रंट एंड के लोग लेते हैं। हम जो कंट्रोल कर रहे हैं बैंकिंग, फाइनेंस, सेक्रेटेरियल, कंप्लायंस, ऑल दैट बैक एंड फंक्शन जो हैं आर कंट्रोल्ड बाय अस, एंड ऑफ कोर्स सम कस्टमर रिलेशनशिप्स एट अ सीनियर लेवल relationships are there. But जो बंदे आते हैं उनको हम लेते हैं, they are either specialists in production or in marketing or in design, or they have some very strong customer relationship which we don't have that. Suppose हमारे पास customer है, I'm talking of India point of view, Reliance है हमारे पास, उसका suppose he is very close to Arvind or he is very close to Raymond. So फिर उसको ले आते हैं, then he can add a new customer to us. But we don't make him invest. पैसे हम ही लगाते हैं because he is probably an employee, so he doesn't have the money to invest. We put the money, but we take care of the back end, so he doesn't have any financial problems. He doesn't have to worry about all the government department, the administration, HR. All that is with us. He only takes care of the marketing, design, and execution and delivering on time. And it's working very well. And because most of the people you bring on board, they are specialists in that front end. We don't get the back end. Back end people, of course, we have. The best of accountant, finance, auditors, and all the rest of the stuff. But that we control.
Okay. So other than bringing in professionals, the one other aspect, you all can correct me if I'm wrong, one other aspect where many of these smaller entrepreneurs are worried about is their lack of formal education. Because most of us began, first generation entrepreneurs, so we really didn't have the advantage of formal education. Now, I know one thing, I can share it with you all. All of us in our Bajaj class were very pleasantly surprised when Deepak passed. So obviously that indicates that education was not all that important to make a success in life. But what do you really think? I mean, do you think this should sort of weigh us down, or you think that that's something which is totally irrelevant?
No, I think, you can get very good talent in the market. Let's say, देखो Pearl Academy of Fashion या NIFT है, उनके जो young graduates निकलते हैं, they are not expensive, 20-30 हज़ार पे, मतलब 35 हज़ार पे, you can get trainees. So you can get, हमारे time तो it was all trial and error, there was no talent available. तो अभी these good institutes take out good product. अब engineering college से engineer आ सकता है. तो ये आप startup लोगों को लाके अपने साथ, even if you are not yourself very educated, but as long as you're a good human being, you're nice, you're reacting properly with treating your people well, so they will start contributing. And but it is essential to get the right people, right teams. Need not get the most expensive. Start from colleges. Bring the youngsters who are passing out from these colleges. They are very, very competent, and they can build up in the over a period of time very good infrastructure for you.
Right. Yeah. So that's true. I think the important point that he's making is that you don't need to really bring in managers at 2 lakhs rupees and 5 lakhs rupees and all. You can start off depending on what your level of business is, and you hire people accordingly. But tell me one thing. I know you've talked about your partnerships and other things. The way you have built your business. But I want to share with you one thing, aspect which he is shy of sharing. But the Pearl Global case study or story of Pearl Global has been made into a case study by Harvard Business School. So this is, I think, a unique honor for an Indian inborn in-house businessman of our industry. And somebody whose journey has been converted into a case study by Harvard. So can you just share some more details about this business model of yours?
So basically, my eldest son went to Harvard Business School to do a course called OPM, Owner President Management course. And it was a 2.5 years course where you have to go there 6 weeks every year. So total about 16 weeks of intense, OPM, management course. तो वहाँ पर जो सारे studies वगैरह वो always case studies. So I told Palak, मैंने कहा, yeah, you share our model as well in terms of, the entrepreneurship and across the world, 22 countries, how we built up. So they were fascinated, that how it's working because all these partnerships around the world were all in the same industry, garment industry. And sometimes those 22 partner countries में all working sometimes with the same buyer. So they could not understand कि आपस में competition नहीं होता या क्या है कि how does it work that let's say if you have a customer like Walmart or 10 of our companies are working with Walmart. Even Walmart वाले भी कहते हैं यार ये कैसे कि all Pearl or PDS but you also come you also what are you doing? So we then differentiated कि कोई product different है. कोई denim कर रहा है, कोई t-shirt कर रहा है, कोई jacket कर रहा है, कोई pant कर रहा है. So we specialized and made the customer realize that it's one company but multiple products are there. So and then how those businesses collaborate with each other. हमारे जो verticals हैं, how they collaborating with each other because sometimes competition हो जाता है ना within the verticals also कि यार मैं अगर 100 million कर रहा हूँ तो ये 50 कर रहा है इसको ऊपर नहीं जाने देना. So then we started putting out systems के एक अगर आप एक पार्टनर हो और आप लेट्स से वॉलमार्ट से कर रहे हो और मैं एक पार्टनर हूँ मैं एस्डा के साथ कर रहा हूँ तो उसको बोलेंगे यार तू मेरे को इंट्रोड्यूस कर दे वॉलमार्ट से एंड वॉट एवर बिजनेस आई गेट आई गिव यू सम शेयरिंग ऑफ द प्रॉफिट इन योर वर्टिकल सो दैट कोलैबोरेशन द वे इट वर्कड and how we leverage the businesses into a larger business. So Harvard was very impressed with that. Because they said it's impossible how this can work in so many countries, so many people working with the same market, same customers. So we explained the model and then they made it into a case study, okay, leveraging and collaboration of different verticals within a group. And it's now taught to executive MBA there in Harvard. And some of their professors now actually have become advisors to us because we wanted to go to the next level. So some of their top people now, once a year they come and, interact with our teams and tell them about the new technology that's happening, the new world that's happening, digitization and so on. So it really helped in having this kind. The other thing what we've done also is that we have a venture capital within the company जहाँ पर जो नए startups होते हैं ना, जो bring new product, new technology, we invest in them. Even if it's like $100,000 or $200,000, तो उसका जो फिर टेक्नोलॉजी वो जो स्टार्टअप्स की है वो सब हमें मिल जाती है बिकॉज वी आर पार्टनर्स इन्वेस्टर्स इन दैट सो जहाँ भी कोई अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलती है टू सी हाउ वी कैन इम्प्रूव आवर सेल्स वी टेक दैट अपॉर्चुनिटी सो वी मेक अप एवरीथिंग हैज़ टू बी बजटेड पे आपका 100 रुपये बन रहे हैं प्रॉफिट तो आपने इतने पैसे आपने डिविडेंड में देने हैं इतने पैसे आपने रिटेन करने हैं इतने पैसे आपने लोन्स देने हैं इतने पैसे फिलैंथ्रोफी में देने हैं इतने पैसे आपने स्टार्टअप्स को देने हैं सो वंस यू हैव दैट काइंड ऑफ अ वर्किंग देन यू गेट द बेस्ट ऑफ everything that's happening in the world, So that is also, because these professors taught us that, you Harvard, we have invest karo in choose and you get the technology, you get the best out of them. So it's a two-way thing, where we shared our goals and our practices and they share, what is happening in the different world. And it's worked very well and, it's, I think out of India, maybe there are 8-10 companies which have become a case study in Harvard. I think Airtel is probably one of them.
Yeah.
And I think a couple of others which have done well.
But I think it's a great privilege for all of us that somebody from the garment industry has reached that light. But tell me one thing. You mentioned digitization. Is that just a buzzword or is industry really changing?
No, definitely, because I implemented SAP in 2008. I mean, उस time तो it cost a lot, 20-25 crore रुपया लगा था. आज की rate में तो maybe to do that implement maybe cost 100 crores. But SAP helped in creating, the SOPs, created all the transparency that you need in the production process. So that is just the, processes and timelines and the, your per chart and how you have to deliver. And so that complete thing works very well. But अभी जो हो रहा है, जो digitization हो रही है कि there is bringing efficiency in the system. जैसे, your automatic cutting and your robotics and also your consumptions. पहले हाथ से होता था, मास्टर करता था कि 2 मीटर निकल रहा है, नाउ द कंप्यूटर एंड दीज न्यू टेक्निक्स आर शोइंग कि 180 में बन सकता है. So those kind of things, then even checking, and so even we are now putting RFID in all the factories के जो हर स्टेज पे गारमेंट जो है पता लग रहा है कि इतने पीस कटिंग में पड़े हैं, इतने प्रोडक्शन में है, इतने फिनिशिंग में है, इतने पैक हो गए हैं, एंड ईच गारमेंट कैन बी ट्रैक्ड कि वो कब कटा और कब पैक हुआ और किसने चेक किया. तो दैट कंप्लीट डिजिटाइजेशन इज हेल्पिंग इन गिविंग दैट ट्रांसपेरेंसी. अगर क्वालिटी गलत निकली है तो आपको ये पता है कि वो जो गारमेंट था वो किसने कहाँ कट हुआ था, कहाँ किस टेलर ने बनाया था, किसने चेक किया था, बिकॉज दैट ब्रिंग्स ऑल्सो एफिशिएंसी इन द होल सिस्टम. देन ऑब्वियसली इवन इन द डिज़ाइनिंग, अब तो आजकल इतने ज़्यादा द फैब्रिक्स एंड दोज ग्राफिक्स दैट्स हैपनिंग, यू डोंट हैव टू द गारमेंट्स ऑफ 3D आ गया है, तो उसमें यू डोंट हैव टू सेंड द सैम्पल्स टू द बायर फॉर अप्रूवल. वो 3D में ही सारे बना के ऑनलाइन ही अप्रूवल हो जाती है. एंड दिस ऑफ कोर्स कोविड हैज़ हेल्प्ड इन ऑल्सो फर्दर इम्प्रूविंग दैट. So whether it is sample making or even designing, it's all helping in really improving the speed, which is the essence today of delivery. So it's not a buzzword; it's something which has to be adopted as soon as you're profitable enough to do it.
So I think the point is that if you want to grow your business today, digitization is something that you cannot avoid. At what level, at what scale you bring in digitization is something that depends on your individual businesses, but it is something that is unavoidable, and all of us should really study how, what, why of that. But Deepak, tell me, you have got production facilities now in 5-7 different countries. One of the, I would call it the negatives of Indian manufacturing sector is the lack of productivity, or call it lack of efficiency. What are the differences that you have noticed? Again, I'm restricting myself to the manufacturing factory management. You've got factories in Bangladesh, you own factories in Indonesia. So where are we going wrong? What's the difference?
पहले तो I was the one about the digitization. So this is an expensive thing. So an organization like CMAI or AEPC or someone can actually work on seeing which are the new techniques, which are the new processes that are coming, and you have a small cell and who evaluate, and then you can share it with your teams. So that would be a big help to the your members as such, because individually unko karna may be difficult. So but at CMAI level, if you can do something on that, then that will be definitely a positive. Now coming to the
anything that will put us ahead of APC, we'll be happy to do.
I think you're already ahead of APC. जब भी मैं मिनिस्ट्री में कभी बात करते हैं तो आप लोगों की आपकी जिक्र होता है बहुत कि why can't you guys make presentation like Rahul, and why can't you all work in a more systematic manner and work as one. APC में तो बहुत different factions हो गए ना, कई बार कोई कुछ बोल रहा है, कोई कुछ बोल रहा है. The government also enjoys, ये क्या हो रहा है. वो कोई मैं small exporter का नहीं हुआ, वो बड़े का हो गया, उसका वहाँ हो गया, ऐसे करके. But anyway, the point is that the manufacturing में क्या है कि I think the workers everywhere is how you train them and how you extract. So हमारे जो supervisors है ना, those are हमारे middle management is weak in India. So if you take the Sri Lankans, we hire in different countries, they understand the process and they drive it much better. But we have factories in Chennai, we have factory in Bangalore, we have factory in Gurgaon, then Dhaka है, Samarang है, Vietnam है. तो यहाँ पर the culture is a little different, because shortage of labor होती है. पहली बात तो country जैसे इंडिया में, can you imagine, चेन्नई में factory है इतनी बड़ी, workers ही नहीं है. 100 किलोमीटर से workers लाने पड़ते हैं. And then same in Bangalore, we are in Pinia. वहाँ पर भी buses जाके लाती हैं, and the workers come and they don't want to do overtime. They're just happy with what they're having, 8-10,000. That workers में वो hunger नहीं है, at least in South. North में the migration labor है, they want to work 2 hours, 4 hours a day extra. तो वो फिर slow कर देते हैं production to get the overtime. But I think ultimately जो key है ना, वो management जो आपके अच्छे का supervisor अच्छे हैं, and they are setting the benchmark and then giving productivity के लिए bonus मिल रहा है, efficiency के लिए extra overtime मिल रहा है. So you set up the right things. Then Indian workforce is also not bad. I mean, in Bangalore, some of the workers that are there for some time, their productivity is as good or better than other countries.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. It's just that the outside influence and someone come and, disturb things, and outside environment is not so productive in India, whether it's the union leaders or it's just the atmosphere outside, the politicians or the MLA come and try to, or किसी village के जो locals हैं वो आके करते हैं गड़बड़. But if you see Bangladesh, I give you an example, Bangladesh में the workers are very committed. They want to work 10, 12 hours a day, get their overtime, and they are hungry to get the productivity and efficiency and make the bonus. Whereas if you go to Chennai or Bangalore, वो girls हैं, they don't want to work more than 8 hours. I mean, it's very surprising. उनको ओवर टाइम करना ही नहीं है और ये नहीं समझ आ रही कि मतलब यू गो टू मेक डबल इन ओवर टाइम. बट वो कल्चर ऐसा है कि वो एक तो बेचारी आती बहुत दूर से है, सो देन ऑब्वियसली गोइंग कमिंग 2 hours, 1 hour. So somehow I find very cannot understand कि the same Bengali girls in Bangladesh can work 12 hours a day without, and they're happy to do it. And in our country, they don't want to work more than 8 hours. And the pride in work that the Vietnamese have, आप मानोगे नहीं, वहाँ का जैसे 1000 मशीन है, टोटल फैक्ट्री में बंदे 1500 है. यहाँ पर 1000 मशीन की फैक्ट्री पे यू हैव टू हैव 2000 पीपल और इवन 2500 चेकर्स हैं जी, वो ऑल्ट्रेशन कर रहा है, वो ये कर रहा है, वो. वेरेज वहाँ पर माल मशीन से उतरता है, चेक होता है, पैक होता है. देयर इज नो ऑल्ट्रेशन. बट यू गो टू अ नॉर्थ इंडिया फैक्ट्री या समथिंग, वो ऑल्ट्रेशन की जो सेटअप है दैट इज बिगर देन दी समटाइम स्टिचिंग लाइन. हाँ, तो वो जान के उसमें डिफेक्ट निकालते हैं, फिर वो उसको मेंडिंग वाले आ जाते हैं, फिर ये करते हैं, वो करते हैं. बट दैट्स ऑल बैड मैनेजमेंट. इफ इट्स अ गुड मैनेजमेंट, गुड पीपल ऑन द फ्लोर, दे विल मेक श्योर एवरीथिंग गोज वेल. But Vietnam especially, it's unbelievable that whatever comes out, the machine is perfect. There's no defect. So the workers are very, एक तो पढ़े लिखे हैं, and then they take pride in the work. उनको आपने नुक्स निकाल दिया तो उनको लगता है जी हमारी बेइज्जती हो गई, तो वो बिल्कुल perfect माल बनाएंगे. And then Indonesia also, they are very, very particular about the quality, and we make high quality garments which are there, brand like Polo, Tommy, they're all made there. If you see that product, you can't believe कि भाई ऐसा चीज़ बन सकती है. I mean, it's mind blowing, but it's the culture, the workers and the factory and education. But they can produce 8 hours, they can make great product. If they don't want to work more, or they have a problem at home, or whatever it is. But given the right management, given the right supervisory controls, our workers are equally good. I mean, they're not bad at all. I mean, you have to incentivize them also, give them incentive bonus, production bonus, efficiency bonus. I'll give you an example. Jordan में एक बंदा है, उसके पास 3 शेड हैं. एक शेड में श्रीलंकन हैं, एक में चाइनीज़ हैं, एक में वो इंडियंस हैं. Now Chinese are supposed to be the most productive. They can make like, हमारे यहाँ 12 गारमेंट बनते हैं, वो 24 गारमेंट बना देते हैं पीस रेट में. But because those workers are very incentivized, वो कह रहे हैं जो उनको टारगेट देते हैं, वो सबसे पहले फैक्ट्री में वो इंडियन वाले खाली होकर बैठ जाते हैं कि जी हमारा तो कंप्लीट हो गया टारगेट. चाइनीज़ आर बिहाइंड देम एंड द श्रीलंकन्स आर बिहाइंड देम. So the Indian workers can be also excellent if you give them the right environment, the right incentives, the right, treatment in a way that they are respected. तो कोई कमी नहीं है, मतलब हमारे लोग as good or better.
I think this experience was shared by some of the Sri Lankan companies who set up factories in India, where initially they were told that the Indian workers are not very efficient, so they brought in workers from Sri Lanka. Then they realized that it is not the workers which was the problem, it was the supervisors. And these systems of the line balancing, the line management, etc., which they came. And you'd be happy to note, Deepak, one of the priorities on the CMAI agenda is to set up the training institute not for just tailoring and stitching, but for supervisors. So we are going to train supervisors. Because otherwise typically, जो अच्छा कारीगर है उसको supervisor बना दिया, जो अच्छा supervisor है उसको manager बना दिया. But I think this is what we are hoping to change with this course on supervisors.
But how is it different from ATDC? I think they're also doing some work on skill man training.
Yeah, this all but stitching. It's
that's
not
all stitching.
Yeah, that's all
So
stitching.
you're going into the supervisory and
Supervisory and that sort of thing. And as you mentioned, one of the biggest cartels in garment industry is with the quality control staff and the menders.
Yeah.
So that's a huge cartel that we need to be aware of. Tell me one thing, Deepak. you are such a huge manufacturer. You also, from what I understand, manufacture a lot of private labels for Reliance and Arvind and these things. What has stopped you from, I know you made one effort many years ago, but why don't you focus on the domestic market and build a brand? What do you think of building a brand as one of your next steps?
So we actually did launch Leros in India. At the same time when there was S. Oliver and there was Esprit had also come here, those three German brands came to India about, I think, 8-10 साल हो गए, and we got a very good team also. But problem क्या हुई कि, you know, हमारा lot of stuff gets made in different countries. So let's say if there are 100 garments in different, so it's a collected, coordinated collection. There's t-shirt, there's sweater, the jacket, pant, denim. सो कुछ प्रोडक्शन टर्की में हो रही थी, कुछ प्रोडक्शन बांग्लादेश में, कुछ वियतनाम में, कुछ चाइना में, कुछ इंडिया में. सो हमारा जब वो स्टोर्स खोले तो लॉट ऑफ स्टफ हैड टू बी इम्पोर्टेड. उन दिनों में इम्पोर्ट पॉलिसी में बड़ी गड़बड़ थी. वो बहुत तंग करते थे, यू नो, गुड्स आ गई, रिलीज़ नहीं हो रही, इस पर ड्यूटी ये डाल दो, ये कर दो. अगर MRP उसकी 2000 रुपये है तो क्या 2000 के ऊपर ड्यूटी लगेगी व्हेन द प्रोडक्शन फैक्ट्री कॉस्ट इज $4 or whatever. So what happened that the good that should have been in the store at one time, जैसे स्प्रिंग सीजन है तो स्प्रिंग की पूरी कलेक्शन टंगी होनी चाहिए, इट्स ऑल कोऑर्डिनेटेड, यू नो, आपके उसमें निकरे हैं, टी-शर्ट्स हैं, स्वेटर हैं, जो भी हैं. बट वो माल एक कभी आ जाता कभी नहीं आता था, हिट एंड मिस ऑल द टाइम. सो वी ऑलवेज हैड, यू नो, mismatch of product in the shop, and then we lost a lot of money actually because it continuously happened for 3 years. And then S. Oliver had the same problem, Esprit had the same problem, and we all know each other. We all discuss कि इंडिया में ये import policy, तो अब मेरे काफ़ी streamline हो गई है.
Really, it's improved a lot. But here is a suggestion for you, Deepak. I understand what you are saying, but there are a lot of small to medium-sized Indian brands, you know, whose only limitation to growth is financial resources. So maybe you need to look at that route of investing into these smaller brands and help them really grow much bigger. I mean, for example, there are brands of 20-25 crores, there are brands of 75-100 crores. They have the capacity to go to 500 crores, 700 crores. All they need is that little bit of push in investment. So maybe that is something that you could
absolutely
consider.
I think that's better to you know, acquire a brand which needs support and already established a base. So yeah, if there's any brand that you all can think of where there's a good team in place and who are looking for funding and partnership, we'll be happy to evaluate it because I think there's a huge potential in India. अभी हमारी बांग्लादेश की कई factories तो they supply goods to Reliance and this Arvind and lot of these Indian brands. तो अगर अपना brand होएगा तो definitely we can get the best of the and production in India. There's a lot of beautiful product in India that's being made. So अभी तो import में ज़रूरत भी नहीं है because I'm talking 7-8 years ago when था नहीं. अभी तो you can make beautiful shirts, t-shirts, everything is in pants, everything is getting made in India, and I'm sure you guys are doing it. But if any of you know any good domestic brand which is looking for partnership or investment or funding, we'll be happy to evaluate it. But team अच्छी होनी चाहिए. But we can help them to grow from 50 to 500 to 1,000 to wherever, you know.
Great. Okay, one last question. You have two sons, both of whom are in businesses. Now, I know you have sort of broadly divided into your business into these two, with these two sons. What would you recommend members here? Because each one of us probably has 2 or 3 sons or children. How should we plan our succession? What should be the core principles that we should keep in mind?
देखिए, you can make out आपके जो बच्चे हैं कि whether they have the alignment and whether they have the same chemistry and whether they have the same DNA. Because I found my two sons to be totally different in their thinking and you know, their hunger and their style of working. And even I, out of the 5 brothers, one of 5, my style of working was different. So I came out of the family business in 87, although I started in 76. But आपके अगर बच्चे आप देख रहे हैं कि तो वो इकट्ठे मिलके काम कर सकते हैं. And there are families where the sons work very well. They have a lot of love, respect for each other, and so then, of course, you know, they will continue to grow and grow. And you have to, of course, divide the work between what they one is doing, so there's not too much of overstepping. But अगर आपस में बच्चों की नहीं बनती and you find that different personalities, because five fingers are not the same, some is good in something. So then it is better to sit with them and discuss with them, maybe what would you like to do, and but you have one business. So how do you separate that business, and how are you going to do the division, which becomes complicated. But it can be done in the way that let's say अगर आपके पास 4 customers हैं and they don't want to work together, तो आप बोलो कि ये 2 customers for the next 3 years, ये 2 customers आप handle करेंगे, ये 2 customers आप करेंगे, and then leave it to the destiny, how they grow with those 2 customers. You make it 2 firms. You can divide either customer wise. I think customer wise ही करोगे because factory तो फट लग जाती है, but or if you have only one customer, then you can probably divide between the products. कि भाई तू सिर्फ t-shirt करेगा, तू shirts करेगा, right? And then they can grow from there. Or if there is, I mean, that's the only way to do it, because otherwise you try to force them to work together, and then there's infighting, and tomorrow, you're not there, then there'll be a lot of issues and all that. So I think अगर आपस में बच्चों की कम तालमेल है तो find ways to, in a happy way, separate them in the way that both are, agreeable to what you have done, and then help them both in doing whatever they're doing without taking sides. It's not easy, but it should be done, I think. But I know of a case of like a Shriram Fiber hai, SRF, you all know SRF is a very good company and their market cap is now, I think, few $1 billion. तो वहाँ के वो जो अरुण भरत राम है, वो DCM फैमिली, पुरानी DCM फैमिली, उनके 2 बेटे हैं. तो उन्होंने बेटों से बैठ के बात की कि भाई तुम लोग इकट्ठे करना काम जाओगे कि अलग करना चाहते हो. सो दे गॉट अ फैमिली काउंसलर टू टॉक टू ऑल ऑफ देम, देयर वाइव्स, एंड डिस्कस कि भाई कैसे करना है. तो दे सेड नहीं, हमने इकट्ठे करना है. तो उन्होंने काम डिवाइड कर लिया. एक फाइनेंस देख रहा है, मार्केटिंग देख रहा है, एक प्रोडक्शन परचेज देख रहा है, एंड दे हैव मीटिंग्स ऑन अ रेगुलर बेसिस. यू डिवाइड द वर्क एंड मेक श्योर दैट दे ऑल वर्क एज अ टीम, एंड देयर इज regular meetings, discuss everything that is there, and then it can also, and Shriram Fiber has worked very well, and the brothers are together, and they've reached enormous heights, and the wives also agreed to the structure. Everything happens with mutual discussion. Any new investment, mutual hota hai. So it's all about how to handle the situation. But there are kids who say, we don't want to work together, we want to work in a different way, then you have to separate them in that way. Either divide the markets, divide the customer, divide the product, and help them to grow in their respective way.
Yeah, I guess you made an important point that if you want your sons to work together, and if they want to work together, make sure their wives are also aligned to that same thought, because otherwise that can get into a bit of a hassle. Well, Deepak, before I hand it over again to Naveen and the audience, I'm sure they have a few questions. Thank you very much, Deepak, for sharing your thoughts and insights. I'm sure all of us will go home much more enriched with some new ideas and enthusiasm. So great again meeting up with you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Rahul.
so, Naveen?
Yes, please.
Yeah. A truly inspirational success story, and it is, thank you for sharing with us. And now I would like to invite Santoshji for vote of thanks.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
First, let me congratulate you on your long and fruitful journey.
Thank you.
So you've spoken of the past, you've spoken of the present. If you could focus, or let us say, give your take on the future of clothing industry in Europe, because you have imbibed technology also very well. Technology is progressing by leaps and bounds. What is your take on, there are micro factories which are coming up in Europe, which I've seen, where a cardigan or a sweater is built. You go in the morning, choose your design, and by evening or by the couple of hours you move out, you pick up your product and go. There is also now 3D, which you talked about. The next 3D is where you have printed garments. So what is your take on that? Let us say, not immediate, maybe 20 years, 30 years, how it will, finally evolve. Because West is going to embrace it.
Right.
Our Asian countries, we have large population, we will be wearing what we are. But there it is a different concept. People have different thinking, different culture.
See, the thing is that obviously there is a lot of manufacturing, because of Zara. Zara has a lot of factories around Europe and they have speed to market. But it's still expensive. It's still, a very small niche market. अगर आप देखें स्टोर में जाएंगे तो there's still 50-60% product is more commodity and basic, which is manufactured in our part of the world because of the pricing. So I would say that top 10-20% of the niche product which is possible on 3D production and local manufacturing will happen. But at the same time there's a huge market in India which is growing. So the manufacturers here have to look at India. They have to look at Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. All these markets are growing. China, Korea, Taiwan, Indonesia, which is also 300 million people. So there has to be, and Africa is a huge, opportunity as well. So Western world definitely will shrink in the certain niche of the market, which will be taken over by the domestic production players in Portugal and even Morocco and so on. But I think there's no worry for Indian manufacturers if they are doing the right design and they're doing the product which they're good at. I don't see next 20 years that robotics will take over, or I mean Silicon Valley में I know people जो बैठे यही कर रहे हैं कि कैसे disrupt करें हमारी industry को. But they are not succeeding because the fabric is it's not a stiff thing because they need a stiff thing to make it, and also then the different design, the different processes. कहीं हाथ का है, कहीं ombre है, कहीं beading है, कहीं sequence है, कहीं ruffle है, कहीं lace है. मतलब इतनी चीजें होती हैं garment में. Of course, things like men's shirts and all, which is very basic product. But then if you have very nice fabrics here, and the fabrics are continuously getting better and better, I don't think we have to worry too much about that part of the world. अपना यहाँ सही करो, India domestic market में, go to Africa, there are opportunities. South America, there are opportunities. So there's enough business to be done. And even in Europe, I mean, places like Primark hai, or you're talking of Asda, Tesco, Sainsbury, or you talk of Next or M&S, or even you go to Europe, you have TK, NKD and Taco, jo hai. These are mass retailers. They want, their customers are the masses. So उनको product चाहिए जो 5 euro का retail हो रहा है, 10 euro का retail हो रहा है, 20 euro का retail हो रहा है, वो वहाँ नहीं बन सकता. वो जो आप बात कर रहे हो ना, वो वहाँ cost बढ़ती जा रही है. So it will cater to certain market segment, but not to the product that we are making here. So there's nothing to worry on that.
So as you mentioned, you are having partners in each factory. So is there, you are looking for one partner, you keep one partner in one factory, or there could be 4-5 partners and they're taking a 10% partnership or 20% partnership?
तो अभी कैसे जैसे हमारे गुड़गांव में 6 यूनिट हैं, तो each unit now is run by a production manager. So जो फैक्ट्री का MIS है ना, that is different from the sales marketing. तो उनको जो प्रॉफिट अपनी फैक्ट्री में करते हैं, based on let's say we fix example देता हूँ कि भाई तेरे को 7 rupees a minute cost मिलेगी फैक्ट्री को, and he produces in 6 minutes, 6 rupees per minute. तो अगर आपने 30 million minutes बनाए तो उसका 1 रुपया उसने बचाया, तो उसमें उसकी टीम को प्रॉफिट मिलेगा.
Okay.
So you have to, the workers, the factory level पे तो वैसे है, because they cannot be partner in that. They are more incentive on the profit sharing. But you every month, every day you can see इतने मैंने minutes produce किए, इतने cost per minute आ जाती है. I don't know how you work in your factories in terms of cost per minute. हमारे export में तो cost per minute is a good way of assessing the efficiency of the factory.
Okay.
Or you can say कि जगह आप regular shirts बना रहे हैं, कि भैया 70 रुपए पीस शर्ट की cost हमें चाहिए और वो 60 में produce करता है, तो 10 रुपए पीस profit होता है मतलब. Then you say okay, you get 10% of that, and then you monitor it and do that. But in Bangladesh we have a CEO of 5 factories, so he and his team get 20% of the profit. तो वो तो फिर इकट्ठे मिलके करते हैं, because then it works. So each north में it's more the production head gets incentivized on his output and efficiency of that factory. So different, it's flexible, जहाँ depend करते हैं कि अब एक बढ़िया बहुत अच्छा लड़का मिल गया, वो कहता है मैं 3 फैक्ट्री संभालूंगा, तो उसको 3 फैक्ट्री दे दी, वो 3 फैक्ट्री का भी बनाएगा. तो but it's difficult to give ownership to the production manager in the equity, but you can have a profit sharing incentive scheme.
Okay.
Sir,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, an amazing success story. and something, yeah, it is very, very motivating. Sir, एक सवाल मन में आ रहा है कि destiny आपके लिए कितनी important है sir? Do you really believe in destiny? That yes, because when you started your journey, did you ever think that you would be at this level? One. Two, are you a God-loving or a God-fearing person? As a person.
देखो, God helps those who help themselves. So I've always believed that if you work hard, and of course I never knew I could reach this level because it's been, but definitely destiny is very important. Because मेरी लाइफ में देखे कई चीज़ें ऐसी हुई हैं जो कभी सोच भी नहीं सका, and it happened. So it has to be destiny, somewhere God has helped, and I'm definitely a God-fearing person. I believe in doing, being fair and ethical and not cheating anyone and having a good reputation, because I may get angry, I may shout, abuse, कई बार पहले होता था, when you get angry, but never from the heart, and But coming to, I'll give you an example. जैसे हमारी वियतनाम फैक्ट्री हमने खरीदी वहाँ, talking of 7 साल पहले, तो वो जो बंदा डच था, उसने बड़ा stories दी, and I don't know how, with all my experience, I got taken in by his story. I bought the factory, और वो तो बहुत बढ़िया फैक्ट्री थी. मैं जाके देखा, मज़ा आ गया, इतना बढ़िया प्रोडक्ट बन रहा है. But it was not a compliant factory, and we invested $2 million or some shit like that. तो वो देखा कि वो उससे प्रोडक्शन नहीं हो रही, उससे मतलब compliance नहीं है. We started losing money every year, $1 million. So over 3 years, we investment जाके $8 million की हो गई. And I was on the verge कि साले को बंद कर दो, इसको अब चलाना नहीं है इसको, or Then one day I was in London in a park with my grandchildren. They were on a Sunday. So एक phone बजा mobile का. I always keep my phone on. I work 24/7. I'm not work 24/7, but I'm always available 24/7. Phone बजा के Mr. Seth, I'm Guru speaking. So do you have 5 minutes for me? So मैंने कहा yeah, why not? I mean, tell me. कहता है no, I've heard about your group and I've heard how well you've done and how you have professionals and so on and so forth. So I am in America last 8-10 years. So I want to move back to this part of the world. My parents are getting old and I want to be near them and so on. So would you have any opportunity for me in your group? और मैंने उसको देखा नहीं, मिला नहीं, कभी सुना नहीं. तो मैंने कहा you tell me, send me your CV, let me have a look. Do you have any experience in production or whatever? So he said, let me send you a CV, but I can promise you that if I join your group, I'll give you results, whatever. Then मैंने फिर उसका, he sent me his CV, I did 2-3 reference checks. To cut a long story short, I hired him. वो ऐसा बंदा निकला है, मतलब he's such a committed guy, इतना मेहनती है. He's turned around the factory completely with his passion, with his drive. अच्छी teams लाया, अच्छे लोग लाया, and now he's the most profitable part of our group. This year he is promising to give $5 million profit, having on a turnover of 40 million. वो कहता है उसका पहले क्वार्टर में दे भी दिया उसने $1.5 million का. तो ये ऐसी चीज़ें कई जगह लोग मिलते हैं जो आप कभी सोच भी नहीं सकते थे, but they turned out to be real diamonds. So destiny is there. I mean, otherwise, how else you can explain this? And there are a lot of such cases where I have excellent people who I never dreamt of or never thought that they would be able to perform like that. Same the guy in Indonesia, he's a Ahmedabad guy, Rajesh Masand. He's an old batch, and I met him by chance, somewhere, and he was working for PT Wearwell, and I said, why don't you just? I was always very impressed with Ahmedabad guys. So मैंने कहा तू आजा, तू कहता है no, but I'm doing very well, I'm very happy and so on. But there's a big problem in the family. वो एक बेटी है, एक बेटा है, they're always fighting, and I'm just thinking how long this will continue. मैं कहा तू यहाँ आजा, will take it. So you meet people by chance, and these are opportunities which are destiny. And I think if you're good and you're fair and everything, then things work in your favor. I'll give you an example. जब मैं family से अलग हुआ, तो I had 2-3 customers, but I had no financial base. तो मेरे को किसी ने बोला कि ये मिस्टर वो था सुनेजा, he was the chairman of New Bank of India. So I met him somewhere at a party, and I said, look, I have orders, but I need limits. So he says, you call me tomorrow. I'll find out and tell you. So next morning I called him. मैंने कहा, hi Ramesh, Suneja, so what? कहता है, you have 1 crore limit available tomorrow. Go and start. Don't worry about you to execute your orders. मैंने कहा यार कमाल है, आज की डेट में लिमिट सैंक्शन करानी तो बड़ा लंबा प्रोसेस है. बट इन टॉकिंग ऑफ 80s में द चेयरमैन हैड लॉट ऑफ पावर, ही कुड डू व्हाट ही वांट. So I asked him, मैंने कहा after I met him after a year or something, I said, कैसे किया आपने? कहते जब मैंने आपको मिला तो I was very happy, but then I made 2-3 calls. एक वो मैं कपड़े वाले को जानता था, उससे मैंने पूछा आपके बारे में, उसने बहुत अच्छी रिपोर्ट दी. फिर मैंने एक बायर से पूछा, वो बाइंग एजेंट होते ना उन दिनों में, तो उससे पूछा कि ये किस टाइप का बंदे हैं कंपनी के, तो बहुत बड़े. कहते हैं 2-3 अच्छे रेफरेंस चेक मिल गए, मैं कहा दो यार इसको, ये लड़का चलेगा आगे. So it's, you know, these are destiny only, I would say. But then if you are fair and, you know, you have a good reputation, मेरा reputation जो खराब सिर्फ यहाँ है कि कई बार, you know, some of my friends अच्छे लोग आ जाते हैं हमारे पास, तो वो जरा एक बेइज्जती होती है कि यार हमारा बंदा तोड़ लिया. But I believe कि यार सबकी अपनी अपनी किस्मत है, तोड़ना ना तोड़ना. कि मेरा अगर कोई अच्छा बंदा चले जाएगा आपके पास, I have no grudge. सबको अपना career बनाने, we don't own the people, right? And if I cannot satisfy his desire and he moves to another company, good luck to him. He'll come and tell me I want to go. If I think he's very good, I may not, I will renegotiate and keep him. तो इसलिए हमारे पास जो बंदे हैं 30-40 साल से चल रहे हैं, मतलब जो move नहीं किए, because we won't let them go at any cost, and they also know. So I have hired people from competition, but never poached them. But let's say they came from through a search company, through a वो जो कंपनी होती है जो करती है, CV आया है, उसको बंदा अच्छा है, वो लेट्स से he's in let's say creative garments, एक ही कंपनी, but he's a good guy, and you know, तो अब मैं फोन करके राहुल मेहता से बात करूं कि विजय अग्रवाल से बात करूं, बट हमने नहीं बात की. भाई ठीक है, CV आया, हमने खुद नहीं अप्रोच किया. He found good, we've hired him and he's doing very well. तो अब विजय मिलेगा तो यार आपने हमारा बंदा तोड़ लिया. मैंने कहा भैया हमने नहीं तोड़ा, वो अपने आप ही ढूंढ रहा था मार्केट में. अब you can't deny that. So there I have a bit of an issue when people think, you know, I've been ruthless in hiring people from you know, competition and friends sometimes, but I think that's life. Mein I believe that personal relationship and business are two different things. If I'm your friend, we are friends forever, you know, whatever you want I'll do for you. But business mein what is the business ka interest you have, we have to see. You know, I have responsibility of 40-50,000 workers. I want to make sure that they all have a salary. Then आगे हजारों लाखों लोग हैं जो आगे काम कर रहे हैं, तो उनका interest when it comes to the company. So everything is work, company comes first. You know, and friendship is fine, that is a separate thing. So if you ever hear about me, the people might say हमारा बंदे तोड़ लेते नहीं. But you know, I don't have any bad feeling on that, because if my people go there, I will not feel bad either. You know, so that's the way it is. I don't know if I answered your questions.
So, one question here.
Yes, sir.
What are your views on slow fashion, and how will sustainability play a bigger role in the near future for fashion?
देखिए ये तो बहुत बड़ा एक इशू बन गया है because of the, you know, landfill. They're talking of government building up millions and millions of square. तो अभी sustainability में तो करना ही पड़ेगा, you know, because of course things like zero discharge and green factory and all that, you know, solar वो तो सब done ही है. But now towards, you know, recyclable fabric and how to have garment usage 2-3 times. हमने भी एक company खोली है where, you know, we are it's called Reflaunt. So we have now got centers in UK where all the retailers are allowed कि भाई जो तुम्हारा बच गया माल, you, or even to the consumer, that you send your goods here, we will reprocess them and sell them in East Europe or Africa or something, so the garment gets reused rather than going to the landfill. So these kind of steps will help to you know, control less garments going into the wastage. And of course that yarns हैं या वो no fabrics recyclable वगैरह जो है, उस सब पे manufacturing, you know, poly bags, cartons, bags, उसमें तो already recyclable काफी आ गए. So it's a step going in that direction, and of course it costs more money too. But it will happen over a period of time, but it's not going to, I think at your level, I don't think you have to worry too much, because जैसे organic cotton आया था, अब इतना शोर मचा organic, 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 और जब बाहर को वो $3 का garment है, वो $4.5 का है organic, तो वो 90% तो भाग जाते हैं. But the brand which are high, like Polo, Ralph Lauren, Calvin Klein, which I can pay the price, they will adopt it. But a Primark or a Walmart or a Target, you know, they can have a small portion of it. 90% will be still, you know, what you're making. But you have to talk the language. The buyer won't hear about sustainability, you know. And you have to work on it as well. But obviously, it's going to take a long time.
Deepak ji, you had remarkable success story, and as I see, you are quite hands-on person at this level also. So I'd like to ask you, what has driven you to success in, means what you attribute more to passion or method? In your case, what has been more driving force?
I think passion definitely, my father was working for DCM chemical fertilizer. तो उनका ना वो, he was a big shot. But उन दिनों में the tax was 90%. I don't know if you remember, when Indira Gandhi was there was some time when if you were earning 10 lakh, you were paying 9 lakhs to the government. So my father was a very learned man, very brilliant person, and he was the head of DCM. But he never, there was no money because, obviously the taxes were so high and he was a very ethical person. So he said कि मैंने बच्चों को education देनी है बढ़िया, but that's all I can do, which he did. So all of us are well educated. But ये था कि अपने साला कमा के को देखते थे चरत राम भरतों के DCM फैमिली के ओनर्स आते थे बड़ी बड़ी गाड़ियों में. तो my father बेचारा एम्प्लॉय के अपने नौकरी नहीं करनी. So we have to, get on that. So I really had that passion and hunger to excel and do well. In the first 10 years of my life, I was totally out of touch with the world, with my friends, family, just focusing on the business and making sure. The hard work, government is बड़ा मेहनती का काम है. So passion, of course, and then method. Yeah, then it was trial and error that time, because there was no. So it was you work and then you obviously learn the loopholes and then fix on them. But right now it's all method is very important, and we get people who are equally passionate and who want to do well, who want to excel. So we have great teams, who are really doing the job, and we have to just motivate them and keep them, excited about what they're doing. So both, but initially passion तो बहुत ज़रूरी है to succeed and do well is critical. हाँ जी.
सर सॉरी आपका एक्सपोर्ट्स इतना जोरों में चल रहा था, तो व्हाट मेड यू थिंक ऑफ स्टार्टिंग दिस पैफ पॉल एकेडमी फैशन?
हाँ जी.
तो उसका विचार कैसे आया और आपने व्हाट मेड यू स्टार्ट दैट लाइक?
So ये जब NIFT बना ना, तो NIFT was creating very good talent and people were coming out. Domestic market के देख रहे थे, जैसे वो all these top designers that are there. They all came from NIFT and they were focusing on the domestic market. No one was interested in the exports. तो एक बार वो NIFT में उन्होंने membership हमें भी दी, मैं था, वो संजय लाल भाई was there, and there were some other industry representatives in NIFT. So the whole discussion in that was when it was government IS officers. I think there was some lady who was the director, was only focusing domestic in terms of the product, and exports का they were not looking at all. तो लाइक ऐसे मेरे को तो अपॉर्चुनिटी चाहिए, जैसे आप आज बोलो ये बंदे को इन्वेस्ट करो, ये ले जाएगा, तो आई एम रेडी टू डू इट. आई एम लाइक एंटरप्रेन्योर काइंड ऑफ. सो मेरे को AKG नायर होता था, ही वाज द रजिस्ट्रार ऑफ NIFT. सो आई मेट हिम एट अ पार्टी. तो मैंने कहा नायर साहब, ये आप NIFT इतना बढ़िया चल रहे हो, ये कर रहे हो, वो कर रहे हो, तो गारमेंट एक्सपोर्ट का तो कुछ है ही नहीं सोचा किसी ने. कहता यू टेल मी, यू सेट अप, आई विल रन इट फॉर यू एंड आई विल गेट यू नॉटिंघम ट्रेंड, दिस दैट. एंड वेरी स्मार्ट गाय AKG नायर. And उस time I'm talking about 93, and there was nothing for the export industry at all. So I brought Nair on board. उसको 20%, I think 20 or 25%. उसको बोला you are part of it. Now you run. And he was a very capable guy, very competent, and very hardworking. Unfortunately, we lost him. He got cancer, and he died. But for 20 years, he did a wonderful job. And then I told him the whole focus has to be exports, and of course domestic can be obviously it all, because domestic people become exporters as well. So and he created a great institution, I must say, and I told him I have kept funding it. मैंने कहा पैसे भी बनने चाहिए, but not at the cost of quality. Quality is important. Give the best quality and then पैसे बनते हैं, तो that's good. That's how you can grow and expand. So that's how we did it, and it worked well. And now, of course, we have different centers, and I'm founder chairman. But over the years, and when Nair got cancer, हमारा succession नहीं था, and NIFT was spending money like setting up centers all over India. I think 20 कितने centers हो गए NIFT के, 15-20 centers हैं.
18 plus.
18 plus. And I then had no succession, and I was the garment exporter. I was not a pearl. So I got really worried कि ये बंद ही ना हो जाए, because ये लोग इतना करते जा रहे हैं, फैलाते जा रहे हैं. We had Nair is passing away, and also then I got a foreign company. मैंने कहा ये बंद नहीं होना चाहिए, इतनी मेहनत से चलाया, मैं हो ना हो, but it should run as a institution, create the legacy. So we got some foreign partners who came in, and then they slowly took over, the running of it and also the financing of it. And then I was continued to be involved till 5 years ago. Now I'm just a founder. But they are still, in touch with me. They take advice from me. And my deal was that you will not compromise on the quality, and the name Pearl Academy has to stay. So normally जब foreign companies involved होते हैं वो अपना नाम ले आते हैं. So they have honored it, and I think it's now doing a great service to the industry, and I'm very happy about it. Because now they've gone into a lot of fields of design, not only garments, they're into industrial products, they've gone into online, they've gone into retail. I mean, all kinds of. Obviously, when you get foreign partners, they are having much more, visibility of what the requirement of the industry is. So I'm very happy about it, and it's fantastic. They're doing better than DIF. I think their product is better than DIF right now.
So, first of all, heartfelt congratulations on your book launch, sir.
Thank you.
So, एक क्वेश्चन है मेरे पास. हम कभी भी कोई भी कंपनी या फैक्ट्री कोई दूसरी कंट्रीज में सेटअप करते हैं तो सबसे मेन इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ होता है कि वहाँ के लोगों का या लोकल्स का ट्रस्ट बनाना. सो आपकी कंपनी ने लोकल्स में कैसे अपना ट्रस्ट बनाया, ये उसके बारे में आप कुछ बता सकते हैं?
So basically, Bangladesh is Bengali-speaking people. And Bengalis are first Bengalis and then Muslims. They are very passionate about Bengali. So we hired, Bengali people and sent them there to be, the front end. And like I said, our culture value is very important. Every worker has to be treated with respect, and also like a mother, sister, aunt wala relationship. So छोटी factory ली Bengali head था, and then he created that. So if you do the right things, you can be successful anywhere. It's a question of being fair. अब एक वर्कर बेचारा जिसका 2-2.5 हज़ार रुपया मतलब $2,500 साल की सैलरी है तो उसको क्या उसने बदमाशी करनी है? They get $100 a month. So they are never going to cheat you or create problem for you. Problem हम लोगों से ही आती है management की तरफ से. Because he in that $100 उसका खाना पीना रहना, उसके कपड़े, उसके मेडिकल, उसका रेंट, मतलब कितना कुछ आना जाना, कितना उनका प्रेशर होता है लोगों बेचारों के बाद. तो we have to create that culture, कि you have to respect the workers, give them what's due to them. ये कई फैक्ट्रीज हैं 7 तारीख को सैलरी दी, लटका दिया, बोनस ईद हुई तो बोनस नहीं दिया, ओवर टाइम कराया तो अगर डबल है तो दिया नहीं. तो when you start doing these shortcuts, so then you lose the trust of everyone. But if you do what is as per the law and what they are entitled to and do it respectfully, भाई आपने सैलरी 7 को भी देनी है, 8 को भी देनी है, 6 को भी देनी है, तो you might as well give it because they need it. उनका बेचारा 7 तारीख को सैलरी मिली तो वो घर में आ जाएंगे, वो अपना दुकान वाला आ जाएगा, मेरे को पैसे दो, राइस वाला. So if he gets money on time, then he is happy. If you give him on the 9th, then he has a lot of problems and mental stress to him. So that's how you build up the trust, by doing the right thing at the right place at the right time. Doesn't matter which country you're in.
Last question.
लास्ट क्वेश्चन सर. अभी मैं आपकी तारीफ तो नहीं करना चाहता, काफ़ी लोगों ने बहुत कुछ किया. मैं सिर्फ आपसे पूछना चाहता था कि ये कॉस्ट पर मिनट आपने फैक्ट्री के बारे में ज़रा बात की, उनको थोड़ा सा एलॉबरेट कीजिए.
हाँ, तो ये this is a industrial engineering department जो है, they break up the each part of the garment of the time spent. So you have your cutting, you have your stitching, then you have your quality check, and you have your finishing. तो कितना टाइम लगना चाहिए in each process. So कुछ garment जैसे अब आपका टी-शर्ट है, वो तो 3-4 मिनट में बन जाती है, सिंपल हो गई. अब कई garment अब जैकेट है, that may take much longer, and the cost may go up to much higher. So the industrial engineering department comes up with the cost schedule per minute of each garment, and then you benchmark. जैसे कि आपके 1 लाख पीस बनने हैं उस मंथ में, नहीं पहले तो मिनट्स का वो देते हैं, कितने मिनट्स प्रोडक्शन होनी चाहिए, and then whatever garment get produced have different minutes, so you tally the minutes against the actual benchmark, and the cost of the factory. अगर suppose आपकी वो rent है, salaries, wages सब मिला के 1 करोड़ रुपया सैलरी है मंथ की फैक्ट्री की, और उसके मिनट्स बनने चाहिए, let's say 40 lakh minutes or something. So then this is the cost per minute that is there, and he does more. So then obviously there's a profit, and then he gets shared in that. So industrial engineers who actually go into exact details. I could not give you the exact thing, but it's a very scientific way of doing it.
That's what I was, first time I heard.
So he actually, CMAI could engage industrial engineer, and they could, because when you go to Reliance today, they talk of cost per minute, or if you go to Walmart, वो बोलेगा what is the cost per minute of the factory? If you say it's 5 cents or 10 cents or 6 cents, Bangladesh में they're talking of 6 cents per minute. It's the cost. India में it comes to 9-10 cents per minute. So and then अगर 20 मिनट का garment है तो obviously you have to get, अगर 3 मिनट का garment है उस हिसाब से आपकी compensation होगी. So you should have a cell which does this work and kind of shares with the people that are there. But Reliance से भी आप काम करते हो वो तो per piece fix कर देते होंगे. They're not talking of cost per minute or something. But when they go to Bangladesh, they talk that language. Because production के लोग ही जाके वहाँ buyers बन गए हैं. I mean, if you go to some of the big retailers and wholesalers, हमारे Indians ही जो पहले production करते थे, तो पूरी knowledge है, वही वहाँ जाके buyers बन गए, उनको we cannot even hide anything from them because they know the whole inside story of what happens in the production process. You can't do much fiddling with the cost.
Sir, I would like to ask last question. It's very short. So I want to ask about what would be the piece of advice you'd like to give the young youth of India, the generation who is eager and who want to engage in this industry? That's my question.
In garment industry.
Yes, for the young youth of India.
देखो आज की डेट पे it's very difficult to go and start working with a big retailer or a brand, because they're not looking for new vendors, they're not looking for new suppliers. तो मैं तो यही बोलूँगा कि जो newcomer है वो पहले तो he should work in a factory or some exporter or somewhere to get 2-3 years. पहली बात तो अगर कोई इंस्टीट्यूट में जाके 1-2 साल ट्रेनिंग ले ले थोड़ा टेक्निकल, that would be the first thing. But suppose he's already old and he doesn't want to go to school or college, let him join a big company, exporter में कहीं जाके management training बन जाए, learn little bit about the nuisances of manufacturing and so on for a year, 2 years. If he's a designer, then maybe in the design area, wherever. But obviously, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you should know about manufacturing and so on and merchandising. तो 2 साल आपने ट्रेनिंग ले ली किसी अच्छी कंपनी में, उसके बाद you have a choice of setting up your own thing if you have money, small factory, and then supplying to either आपको आगे माल बनवाना है, or he goes to a domestic retailer and tries to get some order there through some contact. He participates in the fairs, जैसे आपके fair होते हैं, वहाँ पर इतने buyer आते हैं. So you have to start small, and become a supplier either to another factory or to another exporter or to a small retailer and start delivering and generating profit. And then slowly once he comes to a certain level, then maybe he can go and participate in the fairs abroad. And there's a country like Africa, Middle East, South America, where they're not so compliant about the factory and capacity. So you can start selling to those smaller buyers in those countries if you want to be an exporter. And then as you scale up and you have a good factory, good this thing, then you go to Europe and America where the retailers are very particular about, who they want to buy from and the compliance. So it's a journey, but आज आप you're a rich father and you say बेटे चल देखो मैं 1000 मशीन लगवा देता हूँ तो जाके एक्सपोर्टर बन जा, वो दिन खत्म हो गए. He's not going to work because आजकल जो बड़ा buyer है, he wants to see 3 years of record of ESI, PF, bonus, your entire compliances and so on before they give orders to you. So you have to start small, So take some training in a good factory, set up your own and become a subcontractor, learn from there and then, then go to direct retailer, यहाँ पर ही इतने बन जाएंगे. And then go abroad, take part in fairs and get some buyers. And it's a journey, but you can, if you deliver good quality and everything, it will happen, And of course, destiny then is also important.
Thank you, Deepak ji.
Thank you.
What I can say is, like, when you're successful, you don't, hide and you share whatever is your experience. Thank you so much. I would request Santosh Bhai to give vote of thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deepak ji. आपने काफ़ी चीज़ों के ऊपर में टच किया. Your hands-on experience, really, it's a really inspiring story for all of us. हम लोगों के पास में और काफ़ी सवाल है, शायद टाइम कम पड़ रहा है. I am also a habit of reading a books, but आज मुझे पता चला कि एक बुक को पढ़ने के बाद में और उसके ऑथर को हैंड्स ऑन एक्सपीरियंस उसके मुंह से सुनने के बाद में का दोनों का डिफरेंस आज मुझे पता चला. बट रियली थैंक्स फॉर एवरीथिंग what the experience you shared all of us, and it is a really motivation and inspiration for all of us. Thank you everyone for coming here. And, I really want to thank you Rahul Bhai for inviting him over here and हम लोगों को giving us an opportunity to listen to you. Thank you everyone.
Thank you very much. And all I can share is that, like I said, I'm available 24/7. Any of you need any advice, any help, Rahul knows me well. My contact details, everything are there. I'll be happy to, have a chat with anyone anytime. And weekend, Saturday, Sunday, हमेशा available होता है. तो कभी भी फोन करके बात करके email भेज दो and WhatsApp भेज दो and I'll be always there to give my best advice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I like to present a book, one book here for your library.
In fact, I think, Deepak, you will be happy to know, the President, Rajesh, has decided that all those who have attended today will get one copy each from CMAI. And that will be signed by Mr. Sheth.
Friends, the bar and the dinner is open. Thank you.